and welcome to this Power Posting Masterclass, in which you will learn how to get more qualified candidates, faster times to fill your recs, and have happier hiring managers all at the same time. So this is about creating those magnetic postings and the techniques and strategies for doing that with a template that you can create really irresistible postings that your candidates will love. Even if you flunked English, you hate writing, you're sure you're not creative, and you're not even sure that this is something you're willing to try. Let me share with you a quick story from a recruiter that I worked with to transform a job description into a job posting, because they're not the same. So this was a new position for her, a new hiring manager with whom she had never worked, and she got astounding, her word, results. So as she says in April, so this was during the pandemic, she had a rec for this Director of Regulations Compliance, new to her and new with the hiring manager. And actually when I coached her, it was a new position for me as well. I'd never recruited for a position exactly like this. And so she and I worked together using the information that I'm going to share with you today to transform the job description into a real posting. So she posted it internally and on LinkedIn. And in 2 weeks, she had 15 viable candidates. And I think the key word there is, aside from 2 weeks, which is pretty cool, viable. You know that you can put a posting up and have 50 candidates within 2 hours. The issue is not many of them, if any of them, are really viable candidates. And this was very important, and you will see this more and more as a result of all of the things happening in the world today, that gender and ethnicity guidelines are really being raised and much more closely scrutinized. That means we have to change how we recruit in order to meet those guidelines. And in this particular case, she met them on the very first slate, which is very hard to do, particularly for this kind of a role. So she reported that the end-to-end process, from the day she put up the posting to a decision, took just 6 weeks. And in many of the places I've recruited, that is breakneck speed. So she said that she believed it was the job posting that had played a key part in getting it filled quickly, meeting those gender, ethnicity guidelines, and getting it done the first time. How many times have you had a posting, you got a slate of candidates, and the hiring manager said, no, we got to start all over again? Filled it the very first time. And her conclusion was that being able to write effective job postings is going to be instrumental in the talent that this company, and actually every company, is going to be able to attract. Because you know, as COVID is changing everything, people have very different lifestyles integrated with work. It's going to be a very different world, and it's going to come roaring back. And as recruiters, we are going to be right at the head of that tsunami. One of the key ways to change the kinds of results you're getting is to change what you're using as job postings. And I'm hoping that I will be the person, and this will be the video that will help you in that area. Because job postings look a little bit like all these black umbrellas. And what you want to be is that bright, shiny, yellow umbrella that truly stands out in that sea of just dark, everybody looks the same postings. Just a little bit about me. I am the author of the book, The Consultative Recruiter, and the new 2020 edition, which is available in ebook form. I'll tell you about that later. Now, I've been recruiting for over, it's really hard for me to say that word out loud, a very long time. And I've been coaching recruiters to help them achieve what we saw as really epic recruiting results. And it's from a strategy that isn't typically taught. So what I have done is I'm incorporating communication strategies, marketing concepts, and psychology, and then tailoring them for what recruiting is in today's world. So if you're thinking that the last thing in the world you want to do is to look at a blank screen and write a job posting, I'm going to tell you, you don't have to do that. And then if you're saying, oh, I don't want to spend hours, I don't want to be up late at night, there are no cupcakes on this in this video masterclass, I'm sorry. But the reason for this is so that you recognize and remember that in 30 minutes, you're going to be able to write an irresistible, compelling, engaging job posting. And here's an interesting thing that happens when you rewrite the posting, in addition to all of the cool results you get on the candidate-facing side, is you start to see a difference with your hiring managers. If you've read anything that I've written, if you've heard me on other webinars, you know that my key to really creating epic recruiting results is to start first with the hiring manager relationships. But you can't say, oh, I'm really a fabulous recruiter, you're lucky to have me. It just doesn't work, probably never has. So one of the ways that you demonstrate in a very confident way without having to do a lecture is you start doing the things that we're talking about, including writing these really fabulous postings. And this was what one recruiter, after she took the class and got the template, that what she noticed was that when the hiring managers were given the posting to review, she says, once they saw what I did, they see the difference. But here's what's really key. They see her differently as well. She's starting to demonstrate her value add, what she knows about the candidate population that is going to attract them to the position. And the other thing she says, which is also important, is that when you write a posting the way I'm going to share with you today, it saves time. I've had recruiters tell me that they've taken what used to take them an hour or an hour and a half, because so much of the typical conversation that they thought they had to have with candidates is now in the posting, that it has saved incredible amounts of time when you get in the phone screen or the initial interviews. Win, win, win. And here's another one. Manager loved the new posting, and I do recommend that you show it to them for their approval. And again, this recruiter also says, hiring managers have gained a new level of respect for me and see me more of a partner than an order taker. Now, there are lots of other things that I can share and will about ways to shatter that undeserved stereotype of order taker, but this is a very viable way to do that. Recruiting is often seen as a very linear process. You get a rec, you put up the rec as the posting, then lots of candidates line up, and it's kind of a treadmill approach, and eventually you got a warm fanny and a cold chair. And people often do see it, not recruiters, but other people often see it as sort of this linear process. However, recruiting, for those of us who've been recruiting for more than 20 minutes all know, recruiting is a very intricate set of gears, is the only way that I could really picture it. And so when you improve even one of these gears, all of the gears move more smoothly and move faster. And job posting is a big gear in this whole process. So now who benefits? Well, obviously hiring managers benefit because they're going to fill the position faster. They're going to see quality candidates. The other way they benefit is that you often will have to help them see what makes it a great opportunity. And I'm going to talk later about questions you want to ask. And we often think as recruiters that because it says hiring managers, they know how to interview and hire. And actually, the secret, probably poorly kept secret, is that's not often the case. So when you can help them market their positions, they will be more effective at hiring. Now, candidates benefit because candidates will be able to tell if that's the kind of work they want to do. And you and I both know that candidates often apply for positions that are not a fit. And it's just more people that you have to go through, or the ATS sifts out, And so when candidates can clearly see what the job is, then they're more likely to deselect themselves if they're not a fit. It can cut down on the number of candidates people who apply who are not ever going to be candidates. But the candidates are better educated about what the position is, so they know that this is a position that they should apply for. This is going to be very cool. And your company benefits. You actually do get, as I mentioned, for the initial position that I was sharing with you, where this was brand new position, brand new hiring managers, the company benefited because they got a fabulous slate that met their new hiring guidelines for gender, ethnicity, etc. And they also are putting out a much better candidate company branding message. I'm not sure that recruiters are totally responsible for the branding message, but when you can put out exciting information to candidates, it really starts to filter out into the marketplace. So your company absolutely benefits, and you fill positions faster. So that's how you and your career benefit. First of all, you do fill positions faster. You get those candidates faster. You get this wreck off your plate so that the other 7 don't fall off. But it builds your reputation as being a trusted advisor. It clearly demonstrates your value add, and it really advances your career. And I have to tell you, it's way more fun to do it this way. And so here are some realities that you want to be aware of as we are crafting a posting for the world today. So the first is the goldfish. And what that means is that people, it's just a representation of the fact that people today have very short attention spans. The research out of Harvard and Microsoft indicated that people today have an attention span of about 7 seconds. And that is actually 2 seconds shorter than that of a goldfish. And you know this yourself as how you read things and how quickly you make decisions, whether you're going to act or you're going to move to the next screen. And so people today have short attention spans, and that we need to remember as we are writing new style postings. The other is you need a new communication style to engage people these days. And I'm going to share with you a structure that engages people from the beginning, because they get very bored. And again, if we haven't engaged them, then they're going to move on to what's next. And remember, there's probably a whole sea of postings that look like those black umbrellas out there. So we have to stand out. And you have to stand out because otherwise you look like everybody else. And the theory is if you don't stand out, you fade out. So you might be cute, like the little eggs in the little carton, but if you're not different, it's a post and pray kind of situation. And what's worse is if you are sourcing candidates, however you source, reading resume databases, posting on LinkedIn, sourcing on LinkedIn, using ZipRecruiter to go out and get candidates for you. If the posting is not engaging, then it lowers the return on that investment of time and or money. So the sweet spot is right here. So it's what is of interest to the candidate that is relevant about the company and the job. So you already know how to do this. This is what's really fun. So trust me, I'm going to show you that you actually already know how to hit that spot. Because we have to remember that it's all about me being the candidate. And many, many postings are all about the company. You must have, there's not anything that says we recognize, dear candidate, that this is about you. Now, it doesn't mean lying to the candidate. It doesn't mean telling things that, we hope are true, but we don't think are true. It's about being truthful and honest, but it's about engaging the candidate. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. So here's the job posting journey, and here's the decision that people who are reading your postings are always making. And actually, there's a third decision that they can make. They can say, okay, this is really cool. I'm going to go in and apply. I'm going to take care of that now. They can say, well, it's okay. Maybe I'll do it later. And the later comes from, well, I'm not sure this is distinctive enough. Let me see what else is out there. So there are stages. And the first is that people look at position and title. And this is especially true if they're coming to your website, your career center on your website. So what is the position, title, and location? And we want them to click. And then they're going to look at the position description. And how do people read today? Goldfish theory. They do a quick run through. And if you've got a posting that's a long posting, you've got a list of 82 bullets that are requirements and 92 responsibilities, or even if it's just a list of 10, it can sometimes be overwhelming. And the quick run through is just for the person, and we do this too when we're reading things online, is to say, do I want to read this in depth? And then they're going to go through and they'll read it in depth. But you know that they're probably not going to read everything. So we've got to make sure that we capture them so that they do read as much as possible. Because maybe they will and maybe they won't. Sometimes they never do. Then we want them to apply. So there's the job posting journey. And it's sometimes interesting to explain or just kind of lay this out for your hiring managers, because I'm not sure they always think of it as this kind of a journey. Here's the realities. Latest statistics, 70–85% are going to look at it on their phone. And if you have job postings that are long, with long lists of bullets, sometimes it's interesting to just put it on your phone and have your hiring manager look at it to see what it really looks like, especially because of the job posting journey. And so people today, thank you Goldfish, can make very quick stay or swipe decisions. I'm going to stay, I'm going to read more about this. Then they get to the apply, which is the ultimate action if they're qualified, or they're just going to swipe away. And how many times have we done that and say, oh yes, I'll go back to that. And we find really cool stuff later and never go back. And hiring managers, again, often don't recognize that this is the market. This is the reality of where postings are going in the world today. Because nobody really is probably going to read it like this. So it's very important what it says, because people will read selectively, and we can't guarantee what parts they're going to read. But if people think, oh, we have to put all this in because people are going to read all of this, the reality is that's not likely to be the case. And here is the reality, that they're going to probably read it on their phone. Now, the other reason for this picture is that this is how excited we want people to be when they read our posting. And again, I think that a lot of people, hiring managers especially, forget that there is a reaction that we want when people read the posting. We're not putting up postings just to check off the box. We want the right kinds of people to be excited about the posting. This is how we want them to react. You could show the hiring manager the picture just so they get what the reason for the posting is. It's not because some legal entity said we have to have a posting. So here's the key concept. A job description is not a job posting. And this is a language change that's a little bit challenging to make because we're so used to calling job descriptions job postings. You want to make this language change, and then you want to help everybody around you make this same change so that people understand we are not changing the job description, which seems to be totally inviolate and I don't really care because I want a posting. You have to make sure that you're using the right language and that you help the people that you're working with use the right language as well. But here's the good news. The job description is the beginning of a job posting. So you're not starting from scratch. You've got a lot of decent stuff in the job description. What we're going to do is use your expertise, your knowledge of the candidate marketplace, even again, if it's a position you've never recruited for, to understand how to make your posting the bright, shiny yellow umbrella. So when you're talking to your hiring manager, there is some data that you want to get from them. Now, if you can do a full-blown launch meeting, which of course I recommend and have a video on how to do that, that's going to get you all of these questions and all this cool information. But if you don't get a chance to do that, at a minimum, here's what you need to ask. What makes this a great opportunity for a fabulous candidate? Now, the reason to hear this is you want to hear in their words how they're describing what makes this a really cool opportunity. Number one, because you may use some of that in the posting. And when hiring managers see the words they use, it lowers what might be some resistance to changing what they're used to doing, because they're used to seeing the job description as a posting. The other reason this is important is because you want to know that your hiring manager knows how to market this position to a really great candidate. So if they don't have anything that they typically say, that's a problem. But it's a great place for you to step into your consultative recruiter role and share with them what you know, because you're the expert here, about what makes this a great opportunity. Now, what makes it important to the hiring manager, to the company? What makes it important to the company, whether your company is BP or not? That's really an important factor. And one of the things I've learned is that often hiring managers don't really take time to articulate why this position is important. And that is so critical when you are talking to, whether you're talking in a posting or you're talking on a phone or video, to a really great candidate. It's important to know that everybody understands this is an important role. The reality is every role is important or we wouldn't be hiring for it. And what will this candidate get to do that they love? So this is now a bit of the marketing, and it helps the hiring manager understand that we have to market this position. And on another video, I'll talk about common hiring manager misconceptions. So they have misconceptions like, well, but the economy's down. There must be hundreds of these people out there just dying for a job. Or, well, remember, we're company XYZ, and so everybody should be looking for a job for us. Or, well, how hard can it be? So we're wanting to start them thinking about marketing a position, not just assuming that because you went to the door and yelled, we're hiring, that you had to stand back because there were so many candidates waiting to come through that door. And what extras do the candidates get? Now, if you're recruiting for technical positions, the kinds of extras that those candidates want are perhaps different than the kinds of extras that someone who's leading a finance department would like to have, or even someone who's in accounts receivable. But that's your expertise. You know what matters to these candidates. And again, even if you've never done this kind of a position before, you understand about human beings. You understand about what matters to people in the work that they do. So this isn't what benefits do they get, it's what extras. So maybe they get to be the go-to guru, maybe they get to attend state-of-the-art workshops, maybe they're going to get to take some training, maybe they're going to get to work with really smart people, maybe they're going to get to make a contribution because people listen to their ideas. You know what extras matter to people. And so that's what you want to ask your hiring manager. These are the kinds of questions that you want to ask, even though you may know better answers than what you get back from your hiring manager. So how do you create postings that save your time? Well, what's the biggest reason that candidates wash out? Is it because they don't recognize that they have to manage a team and they don't know the size of the team and people are applying? You've got a team of 20 people they're going to manage, and people that have managed 2 are applying. So what are the reasons that many of the candidates don't make it through the ATS or don't make it through you? And that's something you want to stress in the posting. Let's cut down on the time we're spending with candidates who ultimately wash out. It may be something as simple as they have to pass a drug test, or they have to have a certain kind of driver's license. Make it very obvious. Anything you're talking to people about initially, much of that can go in your posting. And that's the key. That when you spend a lot of your time, when you finally get a candidate on the phone or in a video interview, what do you spend the most time explaining to them? And not just about the company and what's cool about the company, but what's in the job and what the key requirements are. That goes in the posting so that you don't have to spend that time, and people have already read it. And again, what you'll find is many candidates will self-select and deselect themselves when they see the reality. And what's the requirement most candidates overlook? So again, that could be you must be able to pass a drug test. You must have global experience. I have a job search client who got all excited. A recruiter contacted him. Actually, this wasn't a case where he applied. The recruiter contacted him and said, "Oh, you'd be perfect for this job." And when I looked at the posting, both my client Greg and I agreed that he was missing a key requirement, which was global experience. It's not like, are you a really good painter? He didn't have global experience, which was an absolute requirement. So when there are things that candidates overlook, or maybe you have to explain to candidates, that goes in your posting. And the most common questions that great candidates will have, so that's why, where does this position sit in the organization? How many people are on the team? Am I strategic, or do I do just tactical things? What's the title of my boss? What am I going to get to do that's really cool? Why is this position available now? What are the questions that again, because you're the expert here, what are the questions that great candidates will have? Because those are the things that you can address in the posting. Think about how much time you save. And again, when you tell the great people up front, you answer their questions and tell them what matters to them, they are more likely to stay engaged with your posting. And when they get to the apply button, which should not just be at the bottom of your posting, by the way, your apply button should be in several places throughout the posting, they're going to hit it. That's what we want. We want them to push apply. And do you have things that you can add that competitors leave out? Now, I'm going to share with you things that are rarely in postings, whether it's your competitors or people that have nothing to do with the kind of recruiting that you're doing. There are things that competitors may be leaving out that you have. And again, this is a really good question to share with your hiring manager, because a lot of times hiring managers, they may not think the competition matters, but they don't always know what they have that the competition doesn't. And again, because of the work you do understand those things. So it's great for the posting and great for that conversation with the hiring manager. So let's talk about tips to help you engage the very best. Tip 1. This is why you don't have to panic, you don't have to know English, you don't have to worry about facing a blank screen, because think about what you would say if you had a really great candidate on the phone. You would have that posting language already in your brain, and maybe it would come out a little bit differently than what I'm going to suggest as a structure, but the point is, by the time you've had the meeting with the hiring manager, you've thought through those questions that we just went through, you've got that posting in your head. And it's really important. Just don't worry about grammar, right? And don't worry about using lots of professional sounding buzzwords or doing things that are fancy. Simple is good. Short paragraphs, we're talking about formatting, but make it simple. And that's one of the key ways that it will be engaging. Don't use lots of blah, blah, blah words. Don't use lots of internal language. Don't use lots of acronyms that nobody really is likely to understand or understand them the same way you do. Because you want to use real people language. What everybody wants in the world today is reality. Though, yes, I grant you, sometimes reality is with us a little too much. But real language. And so I often will say to people, use the language that you would use with a really great candidate if the two of you were sitting on a sunny veranda on a lazy Saturday afternoon, having tall drinks with fruit and umbrellas in them. Be real. And you want to, in your mind, create a picture of your ideal candidate. And you want to write the posting as if you're talking to them. You're sitting on that sunny veranda on a lazy Saturday afternoon, and you are talking real people language to someone you really want to be interested in your position. So here's step 2. Be specific. and describe in, again, real language, real people language, what the job really is that's going to be important to the ideal candidate. Again, even if you haven't done recruiting for that kind of a position before, as you go through the job description, pull out the things that you believe will appeal to the ideal candidate. Now, I'm not saying get rid of anything that they may dislike, but get rid of all the stuff that doesn't really say anything. If you were in this role, this again taps into your skill. If you were this ideal candidate, what would you be excited about? And I know that might sound very strange, but you'll be amazed that you can actually do that. And so what is it that would make your fabulous ideal candidate say, I want to do this job, and I want to do this job for this company. This is the job I want to know more about. And when you talk about the things that are important to them, which many job descriptions do not have that bit of heart, emotion, connection to the candidate, you're really going to stand out. Now, step 3. Candidates will have certain questions, and these are the questions that are function and job specific that I'm talking about. So I'm not necessarily talking about benefits, I'm not necessarily talking about career path. I don't like to attract candidates just based on benefits and career path, though there are some roles where that's very important. Many roles, that's not really the place to start. So what are the questions that you know they're going to ask? And it might, even if it's something simple, like if you say there's travel, candidates might say, is it overnight travel? Is it local travel? What is the percentage? So sometimes they're those kind of mechanical kinds of questions, and sometimes they're questions that have more substance. Because if you can answer their questions, maybe they want to know what's happening in the company today that makes it exciting. Most job descriptions are very bland when they talk about what the company's doing that's exciting. They just sort of reiterate and regurgitate sort of standard old bland stuff. So people may have questions about why is now the time to join the company. If you're in a highly competitive situation, what do you have that I as a candidate will be excited to find that other companies don't have? Or maybe they have it, but they didn't put it in their job description / posting. So when you can engage them on that level and you're answering their questions, they're more likely to be engaged. If you don't do that, they click away because you just look like another black umbrella. And again, when you answer these questions, and obviously you're not going to answer all of them, but the key ones, this is your area of expertise, you can do this. Then you don't have to answer them over and over in your phone screen video interviews. Yes, there'll be questions. Good candidates should always have really great questions, but you've got a lot of the repetitive stuff out of the way. So here are 2 secret tips to engage the best. And these are rarely included in typical job descriptions, which then become job postings, which we know they shouldn't. So the first is to help the person understand, the potential candidate, what makes the position important? What makes it important to the company? What makes it important to clients or the team or their manager? So if it's an admin position, what makes that role important to the people, the team, the person that they will be supporting? This works at every level. I have used this for CEOs, and you think, well, CEOs know what makes it important. So I explained what made it important to the shareholders, which is a great deal of what CEOs get evaluated on. I have used this strategy to recruit dishwashers by explaining to them that their role was what made the restaurant sparkle. And sparkle is what we want our guests to see when they come into that restaurant. So what makes that position important? And in that, you will also start to address what makes people who are in this role excited about their job. And the really interesting thing again is that even if it's a job you've never done, you've got all the data, you've got the job description, you've got the information from the hiring manager. For 30 seconds, put yourself in the shoes of people who do this work, because even if it's work you wouldn't do on a bet, there are people who do it. And let's speak to their passion. And sometimes this is hard because people go, well, I can't believe anybody would be passionate about doing this job. But people want to be able to be passionate. They want to be committed to this. They want to be on a team where they can be involved. So speak to how they will get that quality in this job. You'll rarely find that in postings, and you will be amazed at the quality of candidates who get what you're saying and want to know more, because this is what they want to know. I'll put this into sections here. So the first I've called candidate catnip, which is a lot of what we've been talking about. Now, you may work in a company where you won't say to your hiring manager, okay, so we're going to write this section, which I call candidate catnip. So if that doesn't work in your environment, you could call it the candidate attractor factor. You could call it the stop the swipe strategy. It's what's going to get people to stop and say, okay, so I'm going to give this a little bit more time. What is the position overview? And this can be called a job profile summary or whatever. But again, this part, you want to weave in what you know that will be attractive to people about this position. And what are the responsibilities? What are the key responsibilities? You know, there's probably a long list of bullets, if it's a typical job description, that just don't need to be included. And sometimes what I have done is taken some of the key responsibilities and written them as part of the catnip or the position overview, put them into a paragraph, which should never be more than a sentence or two. But I've moved them up so that people get to see that they get to do the kinds of things, because you could tell that that's a reason people would want the job. Now, what are the first set of accomplishments? It might be 6 months. It might be the first 90 days. We'd like you to accomplish this. If it's a CEO or a senior leader, it might be the first year. I've had recruiting assignments where there wasn't any real key things that needed to be done. It was a 2-year process. And we called it 2-year accomplishments so that people would know what they were expected to do, but they also knew the speed at which the company was moving. So whatever the time frame is, if you can put these in, and you'll be amazed how often you might ask the hiring manager, so, you know, what do you want this person to accomplish in the first performance period or first 6 months? And they often will say, well, I'm going to have to think about that. I'm going to have to get back to you. So that is something you want to work on. And the key elements in the background or the skills that are required, and make them relevant. You know, I think in this day and age, to be talking to people that they have to know Microsoft Word and, you know, be able to get on a Zoom meeting, I'm just not sure we need to tell people that. And it just takes up space, especially on a mobile phone. Now, company highlights. And again, and your website might have some really good data, but if it's same old blunt, you know, and I'm going to show you a sample, and it's not exciting, and it's just sort of, I think I can read it anywhere kind of verbiage, it's just not going to pull people in and attract them. Remember that excited woman, that's the response we want when they read the posting, and all of these play a role in that. And if there's something special about your culture, I did a search for an organization, a huge healthcare system in the Pacific Northwest, and they were very community oriented. And one of the really cool things they had was a tattoo removal free clinic. So people who had, for whatever reason, had tattoos that they really felt they were not appropriate for them anymore, the free clinics would remove those tattoos. And I included that as part of the company highlights, the culture highlights. And you will be amazed at how many candidates said to me that just told me so much about this company. You know, what's a company say? Oh yeah, we're involved in the community. This was something that was really powerful. You don't need a lot of those. One powerful one will do the job. So what makes this job great? What do they get to do? What do they get to learn? What's going on that makes this job really great? Again, put yourself in the shoes of your ideal candidate and what matters to them. What makes this job important to the company, to the team, to the clients? This is important because everybody wants to feel important. And when you can point out that the company recognizes that you are an important contributor to the company's success, then people really are touched. Because how many of us ever hear that? What is it that you do that makes you important? Recruiters are incredibly important to a company. And I'd be willing to bet that you may not hear that as often as you ought to. And then the extras. You get to be a speaker, you get to go here, to really cool webinars, state of the art, those kinds of things will help you get your XYZ designation. What are the extras? Now, these aren't necessarily the order in which you need to do them. I like catnip first because I want to make sure that I've engaged and intrigued somebody. But then I might want to talk about what's cool about this company. If it's a company that is, as a result of what's happening in the world today, that is reinventing itself, it's pivoting, it's got a lot of new thought around new business model. How do we react to how people want to buy these days, or what makes our product important, or we have got to create new products. I might say that right up front if I've got a lot of competition. Other companies that these candidates could go to. So you can move these pieces around, but these would be, as much as possible, things I would refer to. So here's an example of that old company branding, So everybody, if you read a lot of postings, almost everybody is a global leader, world leader, technology leader, producer. We got all these great products. We got this many employees, we're in this many companies, sort of the blah, 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 we're the best, you should join us, blah, blah, blah. So nothing that's distinctive. What I would suggest is that if your postings have the same sort of about the company kind of section that they've had for the last couple of years, it would be to your advantage to change that. So here's an example. So come with us. Not we're looking for, because then immediately we have violated that key rule of it being about the candidate. And this is an important thing where you get to kind of subtly train hiring managers. It has to be about the candidate first, and then they want to know what is it about the company that's going to be a great place for me to join. And companies today have new strategies. They're pivoting from an old model to a new model. So what was that old model focused on? What is it focused on today? And is it a great place for your career? Or what you do here will matter. What you do will matter. So now, quick trips, because we've done all this. Now you've actually got to write the posting. Okay, so remember, you don't have to start with a blank screen. And 30 minutes, you're going to have a power posting. Just 30 minutes. And so I don't want you to think you have to, spend the weekend or work late into the night. You've already got a lot on your plate. Now, when you write postings this way, a lot of those things, because you fill recs, you're filling recs, hopefully somewhat at the same speed you're getting new ones. So this is going to free up time. But you must recognize you've already got a great posting in your head. If you've done the steps that we've talked about so far, you have a great posting. And if you had a great candidate on the phone, you would have the components that need to go into your posting. Maybe they're not yet in the right order, doesn't matter. We just need to get what you would say to a candidate on paper. So decide on the sections that we just did, the catnip and everything, and put them into an order that makes sense. So if you're recruiting for a company that maybe has kind of an old-fashioned stereotype, maybe your hiring managers don't see it that way, but you do, then talk about what's new. Talk about the fact that we're recreating ourselves or we're pivoting. I don't really think reinventing sounds sort of drastic, but we're creating new business models. We've got new products for the world today. Whatever it is, talk about what's new and what's exciting, and do it in the order in which you think people are likely to ask the questions. Here's what's really important, and this is the issue with the job description, because the mantra is, if you confuse them, you lose them. And job descriptions are nothing if they're not confusing. I read job descriptions and I had no idea what the person was supposed to do. Sometimes I've read job descriptions and it turns out that inadvertently one job description had been appended to another. So the top part was one job and the bottom part was another job, just an inadvertent error, but nobody had picked it up and it was a posting. Confuse them and lose them. And you can use that phrase with your hiring manager, by the way. So here is a sample of taking a posting that's just sort of bland and boring and who's going to read it, and just a few thoughts on how it can be revamped. So this is an enterprise project manager, as it says. And so first of all, when this job description was posted, it was posted just like this. There was obviously much more to it. So you need to recognize that anytime there's a long paragraph and we've got parentheses and commas out the wazoo and all this stuff going on. Interestingly, there was no period at the end of that, which, you just go, was anybody paying attention? So people are going, that it's been on the screen, and I would be willing to bet that you haven't read the whole thing. You're not crazy, right? Nobody's really going to read that from stem to stern. So now you want to ask your hiring manager, what makes this a great opportunity? What makes it important? What will they get to do that they love? What extras do they get? So if you haven't done a full launch meeting, you can at least talk about this, even if you have never done recruiting for this kind of a position. So what did we talk about? We've talked about that it's newly created. Now, a lot of people are very excited about newly created, and a lot of people are thinking, oh no, that means I got to figure it out. There isn't any history. There's nobody to follow. So a lot of people who are not going to be excited and willing to be in a newly created position are going to opt out. Then we told them to whom it reports. So that gives them a place, an idea of where this sits in the organization. And now it's in the sales and marketing operations department. Then what is the key thing? What is it that this kind of person loves to do? Develop and execute product launches, seamless releases of the new products to customers. And then they're going to function as the glue. That actually came from the hiring manager. He said, I just need somebody who's going to be the glue. How cool is that, right? And all the things, and real process-oriented organizing, keeping things from falling through the cracks. Those are the kinds of things that project managers love to do. That's why they became a project manager. And then this also came from the hiring manager who said, you know what I really want, because when you ask really good questions, the hiring managers start to engage with you and start to tell you things that they might not have otherwise. And he said, I just would love someone who, even as a child, took things apart to see how they work. So we added that to the posting. So here's what the old one looks like when somebody comes to read it. Here's what the new one looks like. And you can see that the attempt was in the posting to keep people reading and to keep them saying, oh, this is me. This is what I used to do. This is how I want to be viewed in an organization. This would let me do the kind of work I love to do. And then there was another one that I took over from another recruiting company. And, this works at all levels. This was a contract recruiting administrator. And so they had the job description up for 2 weeks, and they had gotten 5 applicants. They'd interviewed all 5. Even though it was clear from their resumes they weren't a fit, then they interviewed them and confirmed that they weren't a fit. So I had those questions with the hiring manager. And then the posting on the right, that it's not a sit at your desk kind of position, that you're going to interact with all of these people. You're responsible for keeping that recruiting process moving, multiple positions. Here's where you report. Again, we got glue, and it's visible, critical. This is what makes you important. Contract people often don't get that kind of recognition. And then I made it clear, it's just a 6-month, it's full time. You may be able to extend it. And then I talked about how they would spend their time. When the posting went up, within the next week, I had 3 really good candidates. Now, what's interesting is the first job description, when it went up, they had 5 candidates pretty quickly. When my posting went up, I only had 3. And I'm thinking, oh no, what have I done wrong? I only got 3. But the reality is they were 3 great candidates and they made a hire with those 3. Think how much time I saved everybody, myself, the company, the hiring manager, the candidates, because I spoke to the ideal candidate. So sometimes your hiring managers may have questions, you may have questions, so let's talk a little bit about some of the most common. One is that the posting can sometimes turn out to be longer than the job description, especially because one of the things we're doing is we're writing very short paragraphs. You saw and experienced you cannot write long paragraphs. So when you make every sentence or 2 a paragraph, it is going to be longer. Now, if it's exciting, interesting, and it answers all the things that we've talked about, then people will keep reading. They're more likely to keep reading if they're very short paragraphs. So the length doesn't matter, it's the content that matters. But your hiring manager might have that question. So the best thing to do is to talk about how people read today. We read, we're going to come in, read the title, then we're going to read separate sections, a little bit of each to decide if we want to read it in detail. But even reading in detail doesn't mean we're going to read every detail. So what you've got here is a reflection of your strategy to captivate and engage the very best candidates, and talk about how people process information, that they're not going to sit and read it from the top to the very bottom, which is why we're putting the apply button in more than one place, because this is how people process information in today, the golden age of the goldfish. So now the hiring manager thinks that candidates want to know more about the role, or, gee, we should put in the whole job description. That's what they're going to want to know. And so here's what you do. You say, cool, or, that's interesting. You don't make a judgment here. You don't tell them no. And then you want to say, what are you thinking would be good information to add? That a great candidate, remember that we always want to keep them focused on attracting great candidates. What are you thinking would be good to add? And then the reason I have her is because you want to stop talking. Because you want them, you don't lead them. You don't give them options to pick from. This is not a buffet. You want to ask them what they think is good information that should be added. Sometimes they've got good points. Sometimes. And then I would ask it again a little differently, because I'm also marketing to them a little bit. What should we add? What do you want to add that's going to attract more of the brightest and the best? So again, we are reinforcing that we're not just putting this job description up as a posting to check off the box. Yep, the job is posted. The posting has a purpose to attract as many as possible of the brightest and the best. So ask your hiring manager those questions if they think, oh, gee, we should add more. It's not enough and they don't have all the stuff in here. So what do you think that not what do you think we should add, but what do you think would be a good addition for a great candidate? What are great candidates going to ask for? But ask one question and then stop talking. Now, what are some guidelines for formatting? And again, this is important to know because your hiring managers may ask this question. So again, because people are going to be reading most likely on some sort of mobile device, some with good screens, some with very tiny screens, you have to violate those old rules. You don't have to be a grammar jockey. You don't have to worry, is it time for a paragraph? Is it time for a comma? Just write it the way you would say it. But short sentences. People get lost and bored in really long sentences. Again, every paragraph is 2 or 3 sentences. There's some very interesting research that has been done in marketing where websites that are now marketing products, often they have every sentence as a new paragraph. And the results are that those seem to get read more, and the sales are stronger when it's very easy to read. So this is all about, remember, it's all about me being the candidate. So we want to keep people reading the posting. Make it easy for them. Yes, you want to do bullets, but don't do long lists. And here's the challenge, and this is why you may want to look at a typical job description on your cell phone and show it to your hiring manager, because 5 bullets on a large screen isn't really awful. But 5 bullets, especially if they're long, complex sentences, 5 bullets on a mobile or even a smaller tablet is just really a lot. So you can make it into a paragraph, but people often think, well, as long as I've got bullets, people will read it. As long as you don't have a lot of bullets, people will read it. And one of the things you can do that again helps, and think about the articles that you read and the things that you're willing to pay attention to, breaking it up into sections. So we maybe wouldn't say candidate catnip, but you might say, what you'll love about this job. Here's a little about, your responsibilities. Here's what will make it great. Here's why it matters. And break it up if your ATS formatting allows you to do this. Every posting should be broken up into sections with bolded section headings so that people can pick and choose the order in which they want to read, because again, it's unlikely they're going to start reading at the top and read all the way to the bottom. Now, sometimes hiring managers say, well, but we're already filling positions. Why do we have to do anything differently? It's the how hard can it be? And you don't realize we're company XYZ. Everybody wants to work for us. That long, all that stuff that people have. So you want to have a bit of a conversation, brief, with your hiring manager. And again, talk about how you're addressing the reality of how people process information today and the importance of having this captivating candidate catnip, if you can use that posting. And it's easy then to spread the employer message about what's new and exciting about the BPs, the XYZs, whatever, of the world today and tomorrow. So again, the length, one of the things that happens. Okay, so here are the tips. Write the posting as if you're talking to the ideal candidate and the benefit, of course, is you attract the very best, and you don't have to spend time saying the same thing to candidates over and over again. Cool things that candidates get to do. It's what candidates want to know, and almost no job description / posting tells them. And the sound bites. Hiring managers often have some sound bites that are really good. I've often had hiring managers who said something that I said, oh, that's a good title for the posting. So put out the sound bites. Listen for the sound bites that the hiring manager uses. Those can be very This is what we want people to do when they find your posting. And you want to remind the hiring managers of that. This is the reason that we're posting, not just to check off the box. This is what we want people to feel. You can just see in her face, this is my job. So here you go. Spine-tingling, totally captivated posting. Write as if you're talking to one person and be conversational. Tell them what you would say to convince them. Touch their heart, their passion, what they desire to contribute. I believe that everybody has that. And if somebody doesn't, you don't want to hire them. So what do they love about their profession? Why does it matter to them, to the company? What makes it important? And how is your job going to fit, and be honest, their concept of their dream job. Maybe these are the kinds of people who want to be able to share new ideas. If that exists in this role, let them know. They're not going to read that between the lines. You have to tell them. So that's the key.